Welcome to July. It is crazy that we're already mid-July. Both of us were like a little discombobulated and like, wait, it's July. It's July. So with that being said, today our deep dive or the feature we're going to highlight is on sign-offs. So newer feature, we're all kind of getting settled in what that looks like, but that's going to be our feature for today. And then we'll highlight any other questions that come through after that.
So the multi-user sign-offs, this is a built-in approval process. And it's a way that we can pass tasks between team members without having to create separate tasks. That's what we used to have to do, is one task to complete the work, a second task to review that work, or we played around with task statuses. We had a bunch of workarounds. But this feature now allows you to have multiple people assigned to it, someone to do it, someone to review it, however you need to pass that back and forth. We have that option now to have multiple people on there. With that comes some clear timestamps, documentation, so you can clearly see when each person approved that or signed off on it to say it was complete.
Yep. And a good point of this is just getting more visibility. So, again, without having to add an extra task that bounces it back and forth between team members, we can see the name and the timestamp of anybody that signed off, and it automatically notifies the next person in line. So, there's less of that having to go to Slack or having to make a comment to pass that back and forth. Keeper's going to help move that along, which is really cool and allows us to just keep an eye on anything that is out there that's waiting on us as well. So that's something that we'll dig into a little bit more, but just know the through line with this is having that visibility and having those timestamps for when and who signed off.
And these sign-offs can be added to any task, custom tasks, closing tasks. All of them have this capability, as you'll see in the GIF that's repeating now, is you click to expand it, click to add, and it's right there below where you would add a checklist. And when you add the sign-off, it will put it at the top for you of that task. But this is an example of adding them at the client level. So if you have one task on this list that you want to have a sign off for, come into the client page, you can add it right there. And you can add as many sign off slots as you need to. I don't think anybody has maxed that out yet. So there's no limit there for how many people can be listed if you need to pass that around. If it's something that you do across all your clients or something that you want to set up and then apply to all, you can also set these up at the template level. Within the template level, you can choose to assign it to a role, like a preparer or reviewer, or you can choose an individual user. When you drop a template like this into a client, if you have someone assigned to the role, then they're automatically going to get added in here on that sign off. So it's a nice way to be able to bulk do that if needed.
Absolutely. And that kind of lets you bridge off the knowledge that Keeper already has. So if we already have established who is the preparer and who is the reviewer for this individual client, then once we drop this in, Keeper says, oh, yep, you already told me who that was. Let me just fill in the blanks here so that you're not having to do it individually, person by person. Takes a little bit of the manual monotony out of these sign-offs
Yeah.
for anything that's going to be across the board or at least consistent across a handful of clients.
All right, Erica, let's talk about some use case examples.
Yes, this is where I get really excited is like, okay, cool. Awesome concept. But like, where do we put it in our account? Because it's probably best practice not to put it everywhere on every task. That can get really cumbersome. And then you're going to be getting emails about everything you have to sign off on. So, across the board, we can establish some firm-wide like preferences or processes that are important milestones in the process that we may want to have sign-offs on. So maybe this is financial reports. Like once we get down to the bottom, let's let our junior bookkeeper or preparer sign off on that. And then let's also have the reviewer or that CFO or whoever have that ability to sign off on both sides. Now, additionally, we can get a little bit, we can add extra sprinkles here and say, hey, for any of those really important reporting tasks, like maybe uncategorized or prepare 1099, or even some of those client specific reports, if you have like a parent account that's used for this specific client or something that's a little bit more nuanced that you've created a report for, that's probably one that we want to go ahead and establish across the board. So, any key reporting tasks that we want to make sure and sign off on or have a second set of eyes on, as well as any high skill tasks. So, for some of us, that's things like payroll. Let me just double check and sign off on it. Or we can do these for things like sales tax filings, right? That it's a bigger deal if we mess this up. So let's have kind of that two sets of eyes on it using sign-offs. Now, getting into some of the nitty gritty as well, because some of this is not going to be consistent across the board. Some of this is going to be that weird client that has a really strange journal entry that you got to check three different places to get the accurate numbers for. Maybe that's one that on this specific client, I'm going to have a sign off on that task. Or if we're using Keeper emails or we've had a client request come in for an additional report that they're going to need for loan or financing or something like that, maybe that's something that we want to have just that second set of eyes on to make sure it's good before we send it over. Another one that I've heard in the community is if we're training a new team member on a process or a new client, maybe we add some sign offs as a temporary measure to help make sure that they feel comfortable with some of these client nuances or with some of these new processes if we're helping kind of expand their skill set and have them on new tasks. So all you can add these wherever you would like, but there's some ideas that we've seen in the community to kind of give you a place to start at least.
And as you begin to explore this and begin to use it, you might need to pass things back to the previous signer. So there are options to undo and override sign-offs. And the permissions for this can be set up in your practice settings, which we'll show you at the end. But if need be, you can undo a sign-off and that kicks it back to the previous person. Or if you need to override it, there's a variety of reasons why that might be. Somebody's out on vacation, you're covering, that kind of thing. Then you could also override, and it's going to give a clear timestamp and note here that it was overridden, who did it and when. Um, so there's just extra features in there for needing to do some back and forth.
Exactly. Because it's in an ideal world, we just pass it forward one time and it's no big deal. But when reality hits, we may need to pass it back to somebody, or we may need to, we know that somebody's looked over it, they just forgot to sign off, but now it's on my plate. So I'll go ahead and override and make sure we're good. So just kind of helping with that practicality when it's not a perfect world. Now, one important thing that is worth mentioning about undoing. So, this is like, hey, I want to pass this back to the previous signer. At this point in Keeper's history, this will remove that initial sign off timestamp. So, we've got a little GIF here on screen that if you go up to the three dots, you hit undo to pass it back, that original timestamp is gone. Now, that's probably not ideal. We want to be able to keep that context. It's just not quite built in yet. So this is one that we've created a canny for. So I'll actually put that in the chat for anybody that wants to upvote, or for anybody that's watching the recording afterward, check the video description and I've included that link as well. So just one thing to note, because a lot of us are doing this so that we have those timestamps, just keep that in mind as it currently stands so you don't accidentally undo that work if it's going to make you like frantic or panicky.
And that candy request is in the chat for anyone who wants to upvote. Now, as you're working through your task list, this is something that you can show on your task list as well. So the gift that's showing now is on your tasks, your task list here. You can, there's a quick button, quick filter button there that says requires my sign off. So you can check that and it'll automatically add it in there for you and filter that task list down. And then you can just click on that. It'll open it up and you can sign off right there or edit as needed. If you have other filters set up, you can always go to the add and remove columns to edit your columns here and add sign offs. the two sign off columns there if you need it.
Yep. And I think this is important because a lot of us will get that email, obviously, if we're next up in line. But if we have a handful that we're going to need to go into, some of us are creating a combined task list that shows me the tasks that are assigned to me, as well as those sign offs. We can either combine them or add, individual ones that we just go down the list when we're starting our day. But either way, this is a really good place to get visibility and make sure nothing's just like sitting on your plate, especially if it needs to go to somebody after you. So there's been a lot of talk in the community about how do I double check what's next for me on a sign off. That task list and using that filter that's already there is one of the best ways to do that.
Mhm. And we had mentioned that you can adjust your permissions. So if you go to your practice settings, come into practice and statements, click on workflows here, and then come down to sign offs. Then you can set your permissions here for who has the permission to modify, to add, modify, to override, or undo. All of that is available there. And we're going to jump into our demo here in just a second, and I'll go there as well.
Exactly. So one of the things that
Yeah,
we've
you
seen
can
a
dive
lot
in.
is that question about like, hey, I'm not able to undo what's going on. That's probably a settings and permission issue. So Jody's in our demo now. So let's go ahead and walk through where that lives in real time so that we can all kind of figure that out together.
Yep. So like I said, up here in practice settings, you're going to come to, it's going to be default on project management or practice management. Come here to workflows, all the way at the bottom, sign offs. And then who has permission to add and modify those? You have manager and above, admin and above, or super admin. These are the three permissions that are available for all of these. So you can choose who has override access and who has the ability to revert or to undo a sign off as well. So all of that is here in your permissions or in your settings. Something I did not have a slide for, but I also want to highlight when it comes to settings and your preferences here are those notifications. So anytime you are on a sign off and it's your turn to sign off, you will get that email and it comes immediately. If you want to bulk receive those, so limit it to maybe every 30 minutes, what you'll do is you'll come up here to your user settings and then come to the notifications tab. And right here, batch related sign off requests into one email. So that's going to say every 30 minutes, I'll look to see if you have any new sign offs available, and then I'll send them all at the same time to you. If you don't want to receive these notifications at all, you can uncheck this box that says emails about comments, assigned tasks, and sign offs. So if you uncheck this one, then you will not get those emails throughout the day as you have sign offs available.
Yep. And it's just personal preference here. If you are somebody that your email inbox gets way overwhelming, but you have the habit of going in and checking that task list, then remove this, adjust this, right? But if you are still pretty email heavy in the work that you do, maybe you leave this on or batch it. So again, lots of options here, just depending on your workflow, and you can always go back and change it. If you start one way and it feels overwhelming, then maybe that's when we would suggest batching it. Or if that still feels overwhelming, maybe that's when we turn it off and we start implementing a habit or a like time block in the day to go check in on our keeper tasks or comments or something like that. So again, you choose how you want to do this. It can always change over time, but figure out one way and then just kind of let yourself have the permission to adjust as you're going.
Yeah.
Now,
That's it for our
Jody,
deep dive. Let's open up
yeah,
for Q&A. So this is a time, ask any question. I know we have a couple already queued up
queued up.
about sign-offs, but please feel free to ask us about any feature or anything that you're running into that you'd like to troubleshoot or problem solve with us today.
Exactly. So, Jody, before we get into questions, I want to make sure that we give a live example of the task list and selecting
Yeah,
that column. So let's do that really quickly. And then Angie, I
sure.
see your question and we'll pop there next.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll come up to our task list. And the quick button that we showed in the slide is here, requires my sign off. And that's going to quickly filter to just the ones where I am the next sign off here. Now, if I have a different view that I'm looking at, um, maybe I'm looking at due this week. And I want to know, okay, are there any sign offs on this? I can come up here to the um, manage columns and I can turn on these two. So sign offs, that's going to tell me which tasks have sign offs and how many sign offs there are, and then the next sign off as well. So I will close that. And none of these tasks have those, but I do have the columns now, so I could update my view if I want to. Um, but yeah, let me go back to our default and show this again, and then we can filter. Come back here. And anytime you change your view, you're gonna have to add these back in and then you can update it to save that view. But once you have these columns added, you can filter. So you can show, any of these. Maybe we'll say pending and completed. Oh, no, you can only select one. Let me go back to pending here. And that's going to show me, okay, how many sign-offs are required? Who is the next one in line? So here, two people are done. I'm the last one waiting. And then I can click to see that. I can see when it was signed off on, who signed off on it. And then if I'm ready to, I can go ahead and click sign off to complete that task.
Yep, exactly. So this makes it really easy that from this list, I can go through and sign off on anything, especially if it's like payroll or something like that that's outside of Keeper. Or I can always use that purple go to close button that'll take me directly to that task on the correct client page on the correct month that we're working on. So really easy navigation from here, but this is a really nice way to have that view that says what's landing on my plate, either task wise or sign off wise. And then Jody, will you give a quick visual on that filter on the next sign off so that we can filter down by just me, like my
Mhm.
sign offs? Yeah, exactly.
So you can select yourself. You could also select, is it the preparer doing it? Get the role in which that's been assigned to that as well. And you can always select multiples.
Yep. Absolutely. And then anytime you make any changes, Jody mentioned this, but we can save view up at the very top to kind of update. So if any of us have a my task due this week and we want to add that sign offs instead or in addition or create a separate view, all of those are going to be save view. And then if we have an existing view that we're just editing, we can click edit and save. If not, and it's a completely new view, then we can save as a new view and label it whatever we would like to, and then choose whether we want firm wide, everybody sees it, or private, it's just for us. So wanted to make sure that that was super clear and easy because sometimes save views get a little bit tricky, especially when you got to like manage the columns that you're looking at and stuff like that. Alrighty. Jody, anything else before we pop into questions?
Nope.
Cool.
Let's jump in.
Alrighty. So Miss Angie has a lovely question. Is there a good way to see what needs sign-offs from the dashboard or the client list, or is it only the task list right now? So really great question here.
All right. Trying to see, remember which ones have them. So you can see who the next sign off is. So you can tell from here and that's by clicking in. So there's not a fast way to look at it from this view. There's not a column to add either that says how many have sign offs. But when you click open to see what tasks are within that section, you can see this little icon here that says, okay, there are sign offs on this, and this is the next person in line to complete the sign off. But that's as far as it'll go for you.
Yep. So especially when it comes to filtering down what sign-offs are on your plate, easiest way is going to be to go to the task
Tasks.
list unless you know in your head these are the columns or the sections that have tasks. Let me check from here, right? So just want to make that super clear that if we want to filter that down to what's pending for you, task list is going to be our best game plan there.
Yes, definitely the fastest way.
Yep, absolutely. And the best way to make sure you're not missing anything. I think that's a lot of our fear is like, I'm going to be holding up the bus or like something's going to be waiting on me and my team members won't be able to pass it along because it's on my plate. So we really like that task list and making either a separate view for your sign offs and tasks or a combined one that has everything assigned to you or that's on your plate at this point. Do you want to give people a next step if you're like, oh, I really love this? Where can I go find more? So we do these monthly Q&As every third Wednesday. So after most people are done with the close, then we'll talk about new features and just give people a place to brainstorm. So you can always join on our next one. We have a deep dive feature every time and it's different. So next time, we're not sure 100% what we're going to focus on yet, but we'll do different features to kind of bop around. So you can join us live to get the full, or if you want to go back and watch anything that we've done before, we can absolutely, or we have all of those on our YouTube channel. So if you want to go back and look at onboarding or learn more about save views, we've absolutely got you there. We do have a handful of PDFs on our additional resources page. So that's just hughesandstrong.com/keeper. If you want to know how to use tags or soon know what statuses we recommend, things like that, those are all on our additional resources page as well. So that's for the freebies for anybody just wanting to learn more about Keeper and know how to use it. We do also focus purely on Keeper as well. So there is more than just this Q&A that we do. So if you need some team training, if you want a second set of eyes on your account to know what's next for you or what you're missing, we absolutely do diagnostic reviews. And then we are able to help with anything from, hey, can you give me some templates so I can get started and just be here for questions, all the way to, hey, love what you guys are doing. You seem like you know what you're doing. Can you just do it for me? And I'll fill in the gaps on what each of these clients need or what services we do for them. So we are full spectrum just to make sure that wherever you land, if you need more than just a couple of freebies or hopping on this Q&A, reach out to us at hughesandstrong.com/contact, and we'll get in contact with you to schedule a session and kind of figure out what you're going to need from there.